Yuval, thank you for being with us. You look terribly tired. Which, how many trips did you make to Europe since your father was abducted to Gaza?
Actually, this is my 7th trip to Europe from the beginning. My first trip was 3 weeks after the kidnapped. It was to Italy, to the government of Italy. And then I met President Andrzej Duda. And for this time, every delegation I was invited, I went. I was in Skopje, in Netherlands, and again in Italy to meet the Pope. Here is my 3rd time. I was in Germany also. So,
do you have the feeling that the politicians, the statesmen you talk to, really want and can do something to help Alex?
First, I know that many of our trips and many of our meetings had acts in the end by the people we met. We know it. So I really hope every meeting that something will happen. You know, when you talk to politicians, you never know what they're doing in the end. So I hope so. I hope they're doing everything after they hear the story.
If you can tell us of some of the results, that would be very helpful. I don't know if you can tell us. You can't. Okay, there was no question. No. But the reason I asked is that people often think that this is just for show, right?
Yeah.
And I still want to hope that it actually isn't, that actual things can get done. Okay, in a way, in a grotesque way, this is a continuation of your line of work. You are a specialist in logistics, and now you're trying to rearrange the world to get Alex out.
It's a strange way to look on it. I know I have power, you know. I know in myself that to change things. So maybe that's what led me to these trips, maybe.
So you made 7 trips to Europe, but do you know how many trips Alex made to Poland? Is it even possible to count?
I don't think you can count. I can say that when I was a kid, there were years he was in Poland more than in Israel. And we didn't see him for months. So
Oleg Edelman, Marek Edelman's son, once told me, do you have any idea how difficult it is to share your father with an entire nation? Do you too sometimes have this feeling?
To tell you the truth, I knew he have a lot of friends here and a lot of power here, but I couldn't imagine, because when it began, we got messages from thousands. It was really amazing for us, or for all the family, the people that want to help, and the demonstration here and press on the president office. So now I'm in my 3rd trip. I'm feeling that what you said, that I need to share him with all the Polish people. I don't know what he will say about what we're doing. That's the most difficult, because it's his life that we're putting on the table, you know. And after he will come back, and I'm sure he will come back, he will need to deal with it next time he will come here. So we don't know if we're doing the right thing. That's the most frustrating thing.
You're getting him out. It is the right thing, but the way I remember him, he never liked the spotlight on himself.
That's why I think he mostly many of our things he wouldn't like, but I say all the time that if I need to deal with this, and in the end, that's fine. Just come back.
If it works, he will like it.
Yeah.
He's always so targeted, focused on the goal.
Yeah.
So once you get him out, he'll forgive you everything.
I'm sure.
Tell us, in your eyes, what was it that drew him so strongly back to Poland?
I think he never left Poland. When he came to Israel at 9 years old, his father and mother still speak Polish at home. I remember them speaking Polish around us, the grandchildren. And after they were gone, most of his friends were involved in this in Poland. And from 89, when he came here first after
86, I think.
Something like this case, but he could have come here again. The Polish, we heard so much Polish in our house, I remember one time he went to Poland, he came back, I think I was 11. He came back with a video cassette of Polish football from the 50s, the 70s, and the 80s, I think, in Polish. And he sat in our living room and said, "Everybody, now I want to show you the Polish football." So we sat with him, all the boys, and he translated it, and we was so, and it was, and I don't think there are any Israeli boy that know Boniek and Lato and things, So
there's this story he liked to tell during the Yom Kippur War. He was on the Golan, I think, and he was sitting there in position, listening to a small transistor radio, and suddenly he yells out, "Hooray!" And the guys ask, "What happened? What happened? The war is over?" "No, the Poles won at Wembley!"
Yes, I remember this story. I can say that one of his friends told me after he was kidnapped that on her last trip to his house, she came inside. She came into his house when a volleyball match between women national team of Poland and I don't know who played, and he said, "Okay, we start our meeting after it will finish." So she had to sit and watch all the game. She said it was really, but this is him. Polish is in his blood.
So there's this anecdote about Prince Otto von Habsburg, who happened to be an Austrian Europarliamentarian, and he was once asked, "Are you going to watch the Austria-Hungary football match?" And he answered, "And whom are we playing?" So I imagine that if Alex would be asked, "Are you going to watch the Poland-Israel match?" he would answer, "And whom are we playing?"
Yeah, I can say that we had several times that even like in the Olympic Games, so we need to choose if to see a Polish athlete or an Israeli athlete. All the time say your athletes are bad. Let's see the Polish athletes,
But yes, we could go on for hours describing his love for Poland. But where does it come from? After all, 9 years. It doesn't mark you for life.
First, he's saying about this 9 years that was really affect him. He remember everything. But as I say, that they didn't left Poland in the house. My grandfather and grandmother and him and his sister. Poland was around them all the time. So even if he went on to the kibbutz, his house was full of books in Polish. So he all the time was around it. So he didn't, I think in his mind, he didn't leave Poland.
Yes, but still, why? After all, I know, you certainly know, many Jewish families from Poland that once they made Aliyah, they no longer really were interested in Poland or even had negative feelings about it because they were thrown out or they had to flee. So what makes the difference?
It's from the house. I can say that I don't really remember because I was little, but from the stories I know that my grandfather didn't want to come to Israel.
Yeah.
He wanted to stay here. So that affected them a lot, I think.
And yet, he enjoyed Poland.
Yeah. You need to ask him.
I certainly will.
Because we all the boys didn't connect to Polish culture, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know a word in Polish, so I don't know why he was so involved in this, but I think it was in his blood, as I said, from house, you know.
When I met him here, it was so obvious that you didn't even ask. I mean, he was in his element here, right? I certainly will ask him.
Yeah.
And of course, Poland couldn't compete for you with Israel. I mean, you were in full immersion in Israel. You're born Israeli.
But he is also a full Israeli, you know.
Yeah, this is the point.
His friends say 200% a man, you know, 100% Polish and 100% Israeli, because he was 100% Israeli, because to be agricultural and to work in the fields and to go every morning to the fields, and it was as important to him like a guide in Poland.
Absolutely.
So he had all the time his conflict between Poland and Israel. But I think he loved both countries the same.
But when you say conflict, do you mean just a time conflict? Or was it that different values were involved in his love for both countries?
I think it's different values, because Poland and Israel culture are really different.
Tell us why.
We are, I think, more aggressive. I don't know. More everything needs to be fast, and here it's more, you know, stable.
This will come as news to our listeners. You may be sure of that.
Now Poland is like Israel, you know. But if you look back, I think that he found his soul in Poland and his mind in Israel, I can say.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. You're right, because Alex is the incarnation of the Israeli dream, right? He's the intellectual who works in the fields, the scholar who is also a soldier. He incarnates all the values that the state of Israel expects of its citizens. But Israel seems to think that once you incarnate all those values, that's enough. You don't need to look for something more overseas. In this sense, didn't some of his Israeli friends see his love of Poland not as a betrayal of Israel, but as like looking for something more?
Yeah.
Did you get that feeling?
Yeah. I think many call him the Pole, you know, to see if he will get angry from this, but
made them happy.
But for him, it was happy, you know, because he said, "Okay, I don't care. You're calling me like this." As I say, his soul was here all the time. So for us, we felt it at home very, very well in every aspect, you know, even it's in food, in culture, and everything. Even though most of the children didn't, you know, were involved in Polish, because we are truly Israelis. So for him, it was another, you know, another issue that was his, you know.
So what was it like to grow up as Alex's son, when an important part of him was in a different language and on a different continent? Wasn't it difficult?
Yes, of course. But I grew up in a kibbutz, and
Okay.
I grew up in the former,
Mm-hmm.
like in the kibbutz. So we grew up in a children's home.
Mm-hmm.
So most of his trips, it was regular for us. We used to get used to it. But when you grow up as a son of him, you have to know history.
Mm-hmm.
You have to listen to his lectures at home. It was difficult, but you have to, and you have to listen to his talking about Poland. So I think I know most of many children in Israel about Poland,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it when I came here on a delegation of children when I was 18, that many of the things he told my friends I already knew. So it was, for me, I walk, in the end of the group, and after it he said, well, why are you not listening to me? Because I said, you already told me what you told them. So
it felt familiar.
yes, many things I saw here in the first time I came, I already knew, what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, because we felt it at home, as I said.
So you knew what to expect, both in the positive and the negative sense, right?
Yes, and yes, you can say it like this, yeah.
So what were some of the positives and some of the negatives you run into?
That's a difficult question. I saw the positive thing was that he was glowing up here. For him, I saw how he's so happy to show me where he grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember that every time on lunch when all the kids go to McDonald's and stuff, he took me into Polish restaurants. I will show you my dishes, and I didn't like them, so this maybe the negative thing. I don't know, remember something negative, but for me, the negative thing, maybe it's to hear another time every story. So then maybe this was the negative thing.
I remember Alex telling me about his military service and his remaining in the unit, although he was really a vatik by then. But his commander asked him and he remained. And Alex says, I don't want to jump. I'm a grown man. I've got 3 kids. It's ridiculous for me to jump with a parachute. And you now yourself are the father of 3 children. So being a father, do you now see Alex differently than when you were only a son?
This is also a difficult question because I think our way of living is very far from our way of living in the kibbutz.
Mm-hmm.
So the similarity is, I can't find the similarity between us, I don't know how to answer this question,
When you come here, people want to talk with you about Alex. And I imagine that the image of Alex that emerges from those questions might be somewhat different than your personal, private image of Alex, right?
Yes.
Did you see any interesting differences?
I see it so that for all of his people here is, I think, influential. It's an educator for all of them. It's a teacher for all of them, and I see his how they describe how he talks, and to us he talk different. It was really, for me, as I said in the beginning, we are really surprised for the amount of people that want to talk about him. And this was really surprising for us.
He changed some people's lives. I spoke to Polish students who had met him and for whom he often was the first Israeli, the first Jew they ever met. And I can remember at least two of them literally saying, he changed my life. Were you never jealous of that? Your dad going somewhere and changing people's lives?
Jealous? No. I'm glad. It's make us, emotional. It's for us. Everyone he can affect. It's good for us. Not jealous.
He certainly also affected a lot of people in Israel.
Yeah.
He affected Israeli Jews, Israeli Arabs, Palestinians. But now, after this horrible event, do you think differently about your friendships with your neighbors in Gaza?
If I think, or he will think?
What you think? Him we will ask. And I pretty well know what he will say, but I'm curious what you will say.
I think that I was surprised of what happened, but I thought that after 20 years of bombings, if we are doing nothing, something will happen, I think the most of the Palestinians will want peace eventually, because they will understand we can't live in like this for many years. I really hope so, because to live in all the time with military operations, it's not a way of life. So I really hope that something will happen and we can live in peace. I hope so.
You say that something will happen, but what needs to happen? Look, it's imaginable that some of the Palestinians you were friends with then helped Hamas prepare the slaughter.
Yeah.
It could have happened.
I think that's what happened, because in many of the kibbutz, they knew exactly who live in which house, how many people they were going to meet. So they had to have information from inside. We really don't know from where they had this information. I think Israel will check it and research what happened, and I hope we'll get results. We'll understand what happened, so it won't happen again. And I hope the Palestinians will understand that we can't live like this anymore.
So what needs to happen?
I don't know. You need to ask the politicians. I don't know.
I have the feeling I really don't want to ask the politicians anymore. I'm completely fed up with the answers I get. I'm much more interested in the answers you can give me.
What needs to happen? As I say, everybody needs to understand that we need to live in Israel like normal human beings all over the world. Unfortunately, there are many places in the world that still didn't live like normal human beings. But first, we are humans, all of us. The Palestinians, most of them, want to live, don't want to rule by other organizations. So I hope the international community will help us vanish Hamas and vanish all these terrorist organizations, so we can live in peace all over the world, because first it will be Hamas, it was Daesh, Al-Qaeda, now Hamas, next time it can be a terror organization in Europe. It's, in Sweden and in other countries, there are already military militias in there. So I really hope that the international community will wake up, because I think the solution to this conflict It depends on the international community, and not on Israel and not on the Palestinians, because it's not only our conflict. That's what everybody need to understand when they look, in narrow about it, what happened in Israel, and say this is your responsibility. They don't understand that we knock on their door.
So what is the responsibility of the international community in this case?
They need to first pressure the countries that are supporting these terror organizations. I think they need to work somehow to condemn them from the international community. And then something will happen, but unfortunately I'm not so optimistic that something like this will happen.
I don't really see the UN condemning Turkey, Iran, Russia. So if this doesn't happen, what will?
I don't think, to tell the truth, the way the UN is worked, we can't have hope in this organization, because now we have more countries that are not democratic and not liberal in the UN. So of course they will speak to Israel like Israel is the most, cruel country in the world. But when we have more condemns than Iran or more condemns than Russia, it's absurd, So I think the free world need to think how to organize things different, how to take things different. We are the UN established in 1948. Maybe it's not really, we need to do something different.
You said earlier that first Israel needs to defeat Hamas, and I agree with you completely. But what should happen on the day after? A Palestinian state?
I don't know. We need to find a solution. But I tell you the truth, I can't see the day after, because for me, I live now my day, because if the 106 hostages won't come back, and if all of them will come back in coffins, I don't see how we can live anymore in Israel, in peace and in security. So first, I want my father alive, along with my uncle that also is hostage, and all our people that get hostage, because every one of them is my new family. A lot of their families went with me to delegation and to meeting across Israel, and I know the story of each and everyone like it's my brother, my father, and my sister. So I want them back, and when they will come back and we can start thinking straight, we'll see what do next. But I can't think about it,
I understand this, but when you look at the present day, you also have to think about the policy of the Israeli government. The government tells us that there are two goals of the war: to free the hostages and to crush Hamas. Do you think those two goals are compatible? After all, we cannot get the hostages out without a deal with Hamas, and the deal with Hamas will make Hamas stronger.
I just need to hope, that the two goals, we can achieve the two goals, because if you want to achieve the two goals, I don't know how you can manage to live in Israel anymore. So these two goals are, I think, Israel depends on these two goals now. So I really, really hope, and I'm convinced that my government wanted to go, and I'm convinced that they're trying everything they can possibly do to bring these goals, because they understand they are responsible. So I really hope so, because the only thing we left is with hopes,
Halina Birnbaum, the Polish Jewish writer, says hope is the last thing to die.
Yeah, that's what we are feeling now, because we are struggling to know to know if military operation is the key, if a deal is the key. I don't know, if I will be a leader of a state, I will know. But for now, we are only, regular people that want our loved ones back. As I say, I want to be fired of this job of being a diplomatic and journalist, and I don't know what I'm any other things I'm doing in this past 111 days, and to come back to our boring life. That's what we want.
From your lips straight to God's ears.
Yeah, amen.
Amen. But in the meantime, we still need to talk about this reality.
Yeah.
Alex's brother-in-law is now on the border demonstrating against humanitarian aid being sent into Gaza, and saying that it is absurd that Israel is sending food, water, fuel, medication to the Palestinians in Gaza who are torturing the hostages. What do you think about it?
This is a very bad conflict, but when you think about, I think when you think about the situation, you need to think, wide. Because if we won't get humanitarian aid inside, we don't get international legitimacy to persuade in this conflict. And if we don't get humanitarian aid inside, what my father will eat? That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that this humanitarian aid, mostly that's what keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
So where it's a very bad conflict, because you see the Palestinians, that many of them made things in our kibbutz that now sit in the humanitarian corridor like they are normal civilians and getting food and water after what they did. But I think we need to think wide on everything. When we demonstrate, we can demonstrate. It's important to say this, but in the end, it's also important to get inside humanitarian aid.
There is no unanimity in the community of the families about the proper strategy. There are those who say that we need to put maximum pressure on Hamas to force them to give up the hostages. And there are those who say we need to make the maximum concessions to Hamas in order to buy out our loved ones. Where do you place yourself in this divide?
I will say something that will sound awkward, Everybody writes. Because nobody knows what will affect to finish this situation. So I say, do everything you think could help. Everybody will do what they think could help. It will help. So I am, from my point of view, I'm trying to use my father's power for international pressure, because I think it's the most important thing in this conflict. I can say that even in our family, my brothers don't think the same. So everybody needs to do what he can do. And maybe I'm right, maybe the other one is right. I don't care, unless we are trying to do something.
I have this feeling when we are discussing this matter here in safe Warsaw, it is as if we were discussing events on Mars. That the difference in the existential situation of Poles here and Israelis and Palestinians there is just mind-boggling. Do you think that when someone lives here in safe Poland, can they understand the essence of this drama, or is it simply beyond our imagination?
I will say something I don't know if everybody will like to hear, but you say safe Poland and safe Warsaw. when these things happen in the world and nobody doing nothing in Ukraine and in Israel, there are no safe place all over the world. When people will realize they're in danger because they're doing nothing, then they will realize what's happening in Israel. And because a lot of people, I see it across Europe, don't understand what's happening in their backyard. And when they will understand, it will be too late. So I really hope that our conflict and Ukraine conflict and other conflicts around the world that's happening now, because a lot happening now around the world, will open the eyes of, as I say, the free world. That this is a war of the free world against evil.
Do you have the feeling that the 30s of the 20th century are coming back?
Yes. Unfortunately, when you know history and look at the history, and when you are Alex's son, you know history very well. I can see things that happening before Second World War. This is very frightening because we see world wars coming toward us. I hope it will somehow blocked, but it will blocked when the free world will understand that it have to be, because I think most people in our planet want to live peacefully, and we have too many leaders in many countries that don't want us to live peacefully, because these conflicts gave them money, gave them connections, so they want it to happen.
As we well know, for evil to triumph, it is sufficient for good people to do nothing. So what would you tell the good people? What should they do?
First, support the good and not the evil. Second, to call everybody to do the same like them, and don't sit at home and say, this is not my field, this is not on me. What happened in Israel I don't care because it's in the Middle East. And say and support the good, because we didn't start this war. We didn't want this war. Hamas came in the kibbutz I grew up. In October 7th, they had 350 people. More than 100 were killed or kidnapped. Many of the kills were raped. I can say that many were tortured. The houses, I can say that I can tell you that my sister's house was burned on them. So for me, she is alive, so I'm glad so we didn't ask for it, we are 20 years living bombs, trying to live, and let's say, okay, this Hamas, the civilians are not responsible for it, but you see, when the civilians had the chance, they came in the kibbutz with hundreds. And many kidnaps were kidnapped by normal civilians that just, sold them to Hamas on jihad, or I don't know to which organization. So when you look at it like this, you need to understand that now we are defending ourselves. So if you want to support good, we need to support Israel in this conflict. I'm sure Israel don't all the things Israel doing it's right. I'm sure as you say, in a war you have mistakes, unfortunately. I hope we're doing less mistakes that we can. But we don't want to kill anyone. We just want to live in peace. My father lived for 50 years near the border. You can't live near the border if you don't believe in peace, because otherwise you run away. And every time they throw missiles on the kibbutz, he said, okay, this is Hamas, they hold the civilians. This is not a war against civilians. and I don't know what he said will came out. So we need to change our reality. We can't live in this reality anymore.
I'm praying that we will be able to record a second part of this conversation with Alex and you at your home.
I hope so, yeah.
And thank you very much
Thank you
for the time you shared with us.
Thank you.